Okay, well, I think we will get started. So again, thank you all for taking the time out of your evening to join us tonight. We're here providing an overview webinar for part of our engagement on the Tillicum Burnside Plan. So the purpose of this webinar is to present some context around what the Tillicum Burnside is and also offer an invitation for you to join us at our upcoming workshops. So before we begin, it's appropriate that we acknowledge that the District of Saanich lies within the territories of the Lekwungen peoples, represented by the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, and the WSÁNEĆ peoples, represented by the Sartlip, Picachin, Sayout, Saipan, and Malahat nations. And so just to introduce who we are today, my name is Alana McDonough, and I'm the Senior Community Planner with the District of Saanich, and I'm the Project Manager for the Tillicum Burnside Plan. And Adam and Mitchell?
Yeah, hi. My name is Adam Smith. I'm a planning analyst in the community planning department, and I'll be assisting Alana with the development of the Tillicum Burnside Plan.
And I'm Mitchell Reardon. I'm Director of Urban Planning at Happy Cities, and we are supporting the district with this work.
So a little bit about the session, just as some housekeeping. Today there is live captioning available if you need it. It's available on the bottom of the screen if it's not already activated, where the three dots are, and then you can just turn that on. We are also recording today's session. These sessions are going to be, there was one recorded earlier today at 12 o'clock. This is the same session, just with fresh faces, and both of these webinars will be added to one of the webinars will be added to our project page. So you can let other people know, and you can always refer back. So the purpose of this webinar is building community capacity around the Tillicum Burnside Plan, what it is, what it means, and where we are in the process and how we can get your involvement. Part of this is to offer some context and learning for you about what this project means, about the Tillicum Burnside area, about the wider trends, and about relevant policies within the district. We're also, following the presentation, it'll just be open question and answers. With that, all of the questions that we do receive, as well as any questions that perhaps we can't answer, we're going to post those on our project page. So you can also refer back to those as our frequently asked questions that stem from this session. And then ultimately, we're hoping to raise awareness around upcoming engagement opportunities that are taking place. This is kind of a kickoff to this series of engagement following the past efforts that we've been putting out there. Yeah, so we'll get to that at the end of the presentation. And so today's agenda roughly is we're going to provide a project overview. We're going to find out who is in the room with us today. We're going to talk a little bit about why we're developing this plan in terms of the context, the trends, the policies, and about well-being. And then we will highlight our upcoming engagement, have our Q&A, and just really thank you so much at the end for joining us this evening. So the project area you'll see is highlighted in a darker green. It is a proposed project boundary for the Tillicum Burnside area, and this is just showing it within the wider context of the District of Saanich. So it's adjacent to part of the Uptown Douglas Plan, or the Uptown Core, as well as opposite side of the highway from Cary. It adjoins with the Tillicum neighborhood, and then it also bounds with the City of Victoria and the Township of Esquimalt. And then this is just a closer look at the proposed study area boundary. This is brought forward as part of the terms of reference for this project to council. So it's smaller than what some of you may be familiar with the past Tillicum local area plan. It's really focused around the Tillicum corridor and the Burnside corridor, as well as the Tillicum Burnside Center. And so the purpose of the plan is to develop a comprehensive center, corridor, and village plan, or CCV plan, as we sometimes call it. And it's to develop and include a new framework for land use changes, such as where to enable more employment and housing, transportation and mobility, such as how to improve our pedestrian experiences, and public realm, like where to locate new parks, squares, and plazas. The intent of the plan is to help guide change over the short, mid, and long term, approximately 20 years. And so what is the difference between these centers, villages, and corridors? So the center, which is the Tillicum Burnside Center, these areas are where more essential services and amenities, public spaces, and housing are concentrated. And they're typically supported by frequent transit and active transportation networks. Each of these are also their influence from our official community plan. And so these are identified in the plan. And then as we get into the Tillicum Burnside Plan, we have more localized planning that is more impactful for the neighborhood. And then we also have villages, and you'll see here in the orange, that's the existing Gorge Village. These are smaller neighborhood hubs that are connected to transit that meet basic commercial and service needs and provide more of a medium density housing. And then there's the corridors shown in the lighter yellow, and these connect those centers and villages and everything in between. They're located along those major roads, and in this case, it is Tillicum and Burnside. And they're also connected to transit networks and higher density mixed use. So the focus areas of the Tillicum Burnside are the Tillicum Burnside Center, the Gorge Village, a potential Burnside Village, building off of the assets that are there, and then the Tillicum Corridor and the Burnside Corridor. So when staff brought the proposed terms of reference for this project forward to council, we included draft project goal statements. And there's goal statements for transportation, land use, public realm, and housing. So the goal statement for transportation is to deliver complete streets in the Tillicum Burnside area and improve connections for all modes with an emphasis on car light living, safety, enjoyment, and efficiency. And then for land use, it's to implement that center corridor and village growth management framework to build complete communities that foster sustainable, walkable, vibrant, and connected places. For our housing, the goal statement is to provide an opportunity for new housing within well-serviced areas with a focus on meeting the needs of the community and providing a diversity of housing. And lastly, for public realm, the goal is to enhance the overall livability through providing community amenities, a safe and connected network of open spaces, and distinct public realm areas. And with each of these goal statements, there is a series of plan objectives that again are just draft, and these will be presented through each of our upcoming engagement workshops, and we'll have the opportunity to discuss those and refine those as we move forward. So how will the land use changes in the Tillicum Burnside be implemented? So as we move through this process, which is the concept development, the draft plan and the policy drafting will start, and it will include guidance on that desired land use, the building heights, densities, and more. Council then, once the plan would be drafted and brought forward for public review and input and refinement, council would then have an opportunity to review and vote on the draft plan. If they approved it, those land use changes would only happen if they were initiated by a property owner, and it would be through a rezoning process. And the plan would guide kind of that evaluation and support of a rezoning. And then the land use changes would only be made at such time they were presented to council, and it would include a public process. So essentially, this plan does not rezone or pre-zone any of the lands. It just provides context and guidance. So in terms of the project timeline, where we are, again, we started the project in December following the terms of reference, and that was just all the background analysis and information gathering in terms of statistics and other assets in the area, and just providing some context baseline mapping. And we are currently in phase 2, which I noted it's the concept development phase. So during this part of the project is where we're looking to get input and feedback and insight from stakeholders and the community. Through this, we've held stakeholder engagement sessions and walking tours, pop-ups, and now we are in the process of kind of starting the more large-scale interactive community workshops. And then this is the primer to that. Following that, then in the summer is when we anticipate we would actually start drafting the plan, and we would go through the process, and there would be another session, public information session, where we would have public open houses and again do surveys and receive your feedback on where we've come. And so how will the engagement we receive be used? It is critical to inform the plan development. So we take all of the information, all of the feedback, all of the input that we receive through events such as tonight or our past events with stakeholder discussions and walking tours, and we gather that feedback, and then we start to categorize it, and it helps us influence incentives or land use designations and what the heights or densities could be, and where transportation improvements are. So it helps us start drafting that plan. And then again, as noted, we would be checking in with everyone again in the fall.
So before we get any further into the content that we'd like to share, we're really curious to learn a little bit more about you and who's joining us this evening. And to do so, we have a program called Slido. And so you're welcome to use, if you have a smartphone, you can put it up and scan that QR code. Alternatively, you can go to slido.com. When you get there, right in the middle of the first page that you see, it's going to say put in your code. That code, which I've also just put into the chat, is 6547775. And this is going to take you to an optional survey. It gives a little bit of anonymized data that we're going to share and we'll go through together. It's entirely optional. It is about how you identify, and if you have any questions or clarifications, we're happy to respond to them. If it's not really working for you, feel free to put your answers in the chat as well. And while you are doing that, I'm just going to stop sharing for one moment because I think you can see black borders on each side of my screen, and I want to change that if I can. So one moment. I'm going to try to share again. Seems that even when I want to change it, you're going to still see those black borders. I am sorry for that, but that's as good as it's going to get. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. If anybody's having any issues or questions, just feel free to put them in the chat or speak out loud. But let's just see what folks are starting to say. Okay, and this is also building on the results that we received earlier during the first session today. We thought it was helpful to consolidate them. So we're seeing a fair number of folks who are saying Gorge Tillicum, and these are open answers, so they're how you're choosing to identify it. Well, we're starting to get a few more coming in quickly. Tillicum Burnside, Tillicum Gorge, South Oak Bay. In the lower mainland area, not within Saanich, someone who has an interest in the area, maybe wants to move there. Thanks for joining us. Gorge Village Boundary, Gorge Village, Burnside, Craigflower. Give you another moment here. Of course, once you've put in your open answer to this question, it's going to take you to one more with a few optional demographic questions as well. Tillicum Burnside Center, prominent response here. We may have a few more that come in this way, but in the meantime, I'm going to just move on to the second question. Just who is in the room today, and just select all that apply. So most folks that are joining the sessions today are noting that they own their own homes. The majority of participants live in the Tillicum Burnside area. Quite a few have lived in the area for a decade or more. Interestingly, a third have children under 18 and a third have cats. Way more cat-oriented community, it would appear, as only 16% of the participants responding have a dog. Also noting that 16% of participants who are putting in their answers, both from this session and the earlier session, are saying that they rent their home. And it's notable that According to the most recent census data, 59% of Tillicum Burnside residents own and 41% rent, and we're seeing a higher share of homeowners joining the session so far. Also, 16% are saying that they speak a language other than English at home, and 12% are identifying or noting they're Indigenous. And we have 8% coming in at over 65. So thanks so much for sharing this. This just helps us get a sense of who's participating and if there's any gaps that we're going to need to address along the way in how engagement is being conducted. So moving on, a fundamental question. Why are we developing this plan? Well, the critical reasons are around providing guidance on future growth and change, and especially managing community growth. We're looking to respond to changing socioeconomic, environmental, and transportation trends, and we're going to spend a few minutes reviewing those. We're also implementing key district and provincial policies. There have been a lot of policy changes around housing and urban development in recent years, and they're really important to take into account. And in doing so, it's also important to be proactive in prioritizing and implementing what change looks like. And getting your input is really important to helping shape what that looks like in terms of how you might manage where new homes are located and the style or built form that they follow, as well as key input on transportation and otherwise. So just looking at some of the trends that are informing this process, Saanich is growing. According to the most recent census data, there's just over 117,000 people who live in Saanich today. By 2031, that number is going to increase to 136,800. That is a pretty substantial increase over the next decade. And up into 2046, it will be 152,000, or that is the projected figure. So we're looking at growth of about 35,000 residents, or almost a third of the population, a quarter plus, over that 25-year period. Notably, we've seen a shift in the age structure in Saanich. If you look at the green outline, you can see the 2006 population, and in the green lines, you're seeing 2021 population. There's been a shrinking number of children that are living in the area, or in Saanich in general. We're also seeing a shift in the 40 to 60 range, as a lot of folks are aging in place, and an increasing number of seniors. And that is, reflecting the intergenerational nature of the community and how social cohesion is established and sustained. At the same time, it is notable that according to the most recent housing needs assessment, there are 1,815 households that live in homes that are not suitable for their size, and that 62% of Tillicum Burnside housing was built before 1981. So there's a housing stock that has been in place for a very long time. And Marie, thank you for noting in the comment that disability identity was left off of the survey. This is how accessible community needs do not get captured and communities remain inaccessible. Really good point. I apologize for that. It is a notable element and one that will be captured in the survey that the full survey that is conducted digitally. So this was capturing a snapshot of items, but it is a really important one, and I apologize for that oversight. There are a number of well-being benefits that come with intergenerational communities. Extensive research has found that for seniors, being in an intergenerational community helps to reduce social isolation. It results in enhanced cognitive function, supports increased physical activity, and establishes a sense of purpose. For youth, it helps to foster a greater sense of empathy and understanding. It helps increase social capital. You get to learn about the community members around you and have confidence in them. It establishes and supports learning and skill development across a range and helps to create a stronger sense of community. And across the board, it helps to reduce social isolation and supports cognitive function. This is really important when you think about intergenerational communities and the ability to support a sense of community and belonging. In 2023, the US Surgeon General established or announced that there was an epidemic of loneliness and isolation in the United States. And the United States is far from alone in that pandemic or in that epidemic. We're seeing growing social isolation and a most pronounced element of it through the pandemic, but we're seeing it in Canada and British Columbia in recent years as well. And it is deeply troubling in a time of increased climate emergencies and other events where we need greater support and social infrastructure with our neighbors. But even in the day-to-day, research has found that chronic loneliness, so people who feel lonely often or always, are feeling health outcomes that are the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So loneliness, where you are lonely not by choice, or you're alone not by choice, is a critical health issue that we can help to address through urban planning and design, and one of the things we look to do through this project. At the same time, we have an affordability crisis that has grown in recent years. The table here is showing home sale prices in Saanich between 2006 and 2024. Overall, prices are up 146% in almost 20 years. And as we can see with the Saanich median household income, which is that dotted green line along the bottom, median income has not kept up. Similar trends are evident in rental prices, which have increased 113% over this period. And this helps to explain how 1,815 households in Saanich are living in accommodation that is not adequate for their family's needs. Despite this high rent, or this rapidly increasing cost of homeownership and rental prices, rental vacancy rates remain low in Saanich, 1.6% according to the most recent Housing Needs Report. There's also over 1,660 unhoused residents in Greater Victoria. And between 2018 and 2022, 1,365 new homes were built in Saanich, which, when we look at the new provincially mandated housing target, is fulfilling less than half. It's about 45% of what that target is for the next 5-year period. In transportation, we're also seeing some societal shifts. Between 2011 and 2022, driving your own vehicle has declined as the mode share in Saanich by 11%. Car passenger rates have remained fairly stable. There's a little spike and then back down. Transit ridership increased up to 2017 and has dropped a little bit into 2022. That's a trend we've seen in many municipalities throughout Canada and beyond, where numbers were increasing. The pandemic hit, they absolutely flattened, and they've been slowly increasing again. We also see bike ridership up quite a lot, and people walking also as a mode of transportation also increasing. So more people walking, more people biking than we were seeing at any point in the last 10 years. And it's also really fascinating to think about the well-being impacts and social connectiveness of traffic and street design on our communities. From some really famous work by somebody named Donald Appleyard back in the 1970s, that's been replicated numerous times since. They found that streets with heavy traffic or fast-moving traffic, folks did not know each other, did not know as many other neighbors, and did not know each other as well. That the impact of being on a busy street had negative implications in terms of the social connections that neighbors had with one another on that location, as opposed to streets that had lighter traffic or slower moving traffic. In Happy Cities work, we've also found that people are both happier and kinder to strangers along streets with street edges that offer a range of smaller shops and services. And this is, the small local businesses that can be supported, that cafes and restaurants and pubs, where you have a lot of space for people to come in and out on that same street. And this is as opposed to, say, a really strong distinction would be, a brick wall of a warehouse. But fascinatingly, it's also something that we see reflected with Whole Foods, banks, and dentists, dental offices, where you have those glazed glass windows that offer no in or out. The way we design our neighborhoods and the way people move through them also impact how children understand them and how they interact with their community. This was some work we did some time ago where we had 10-year-olds at the Gregory Gordon Neighborhood House map out the neighborhood as they understood it. And the image on the left is a map from a child who mainly was driven from location to location and like sat in the back seat. Their parents drove them around. And on the right is someone who mainly moved by walking, bike, skateboard, and scooter. And what we note is the map on the left. This is a mental map that they've drawn just from memory. It covers a significantly larger scale. The space between it is, roads that lead to specific locations: the mall, a store, church, a friend's house. Where the map of the child on the right is much more fine-grained. You're seeing like the street network, and they understand the different interactions of those locations. And they've also noted, where friends are, where stop signs are, and some of the other things within a much more localized area. So how you move, it starts to impact your understanding of community and the social agency that you are able to develop from a very early age. Not quite in this active transportation realm, but bringing back the idea of how we live and work and move. There's also been a significant trend towards working from home. This, of course, came very quickly and prominently when the pandemic hit in March 2020. And while we are seeing, different back to work mandates and different ways for businesses to be either encouraging or requiring staff to come in, what we see consistently is even where those back to work mandates are occurring, it's not typically 5 days a week. You're seeing a lot of cases, 2 to 3 days a week, and this is having implications on how people are living and what they're looking for in their communities. So in Victoria, approximately 1 in 5 residents works mostly from home, and there's also a significant share that are working, 2 to 3 days a week from home. And when you're living in that way, you're starting to look for more services locally, to be able to occasionally go to a cafe or a library in order to work for a few hours, to have access to a grocery store, at least a local grocer within your neighborhood, as opposed to something that you might have picked up downtown and brought home with you. So this is helping to understand the shift towards the 15-minute city model, where you want to have access to parks and open space, and have access to basic commercial needs such as groceries and drugstores, and have access to education and basic healthcare. And that all of this is enabled by the change in connectivity, the fact that we don't need to be in the physical location in order to interact and collaborate in the ways that we have before. And with that trend background, I'm going to pass it back over to you, Elena.
Thanks, Mitchell. Okay, so the Saanich has numerous community plans and policies that guide growth and change within the community. The official community plan, or the OCP, is the most important. It provides the primary guidance. So in concert with other plans and policies, the OCP provides a framework for how Saanich will grow and change as a community. The OCP contains policy to inform decisions by council, staff, and the public in terms of managing growth and land use, protecting the natural environment, guiding transportation and mobility priorities, developing the economy, meeting the housing needs, addressing climate change, and building infrastructure. And Saanich's official community plan was updated last May in 2024. So there are 4 strategic land use directions that guide the official community plan. So while it's focused on land use elements, they're all closely linked with the district sustainability goals and greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. So together, these foster the concept of one planet living, which is supported by the efficient use of land and resources in creating livable communities close to services, amenities, and jobs that are supported by transit and active transportation options. So the first is maintaining the urban containment boundary. And this is to support the retention of the agricultural land and natural areas in Saanich, while also reducing urban sprawl, supporting sustainable transportation options, and encouraging efficient use of infrastructure and public investment. The second is to accommodate most new development in the primary growth areas. So the district is planning for more housing and employment growth to be accommodated in these walkable centers, corridors, and villages serviced by frequent transit and that are equipped with all ages and abilities cycling infrastructure. It's to continue to improve on that range of services and amenities, the active transportation connections, and higher density housing and employment opportunities within these core areas. The third one is to expand housing diversity within our neighborhoods. So this is to support a broader range of housing choice within the neighborhoods through infill to better meet community needs and to provide housing opportunities for all stages of life. It's to support the inclusion of mix of ground-oriented houseplexes, low-rise apartments, and townhomes, offering different tenors, types, and affordability. And lastly, it's to make Saanich a 15-minute community. And so this is building on the existing network of centers and villages, making Saanich walkable 15-minute community where all the households within the urban containment boundary are within generally a 15-minute walk or 1.2 kilometer of those key amenities to support daily living. So where those amenities don't exist, it's plans such as the Tillicum Burnside study to have kind of that localized planning that will guide land use change over time to meet those community needs. And then there are three key transportation documents that contain policy to also help guide and allow for the transportation improvements and infrastructure over time. So the first of those is the Moving Saanich Forward Active Transportation Plan. So this helps guide Saanich's investment in active transportation. The plan is set to help inform and guide this change over the next 30 years. It's made up of three overarching themes, which are connections, convenience, and culture. The vision of the active transportation network is where Saanich is home to universally accessible and complete walking and cycling networks that make it convenient and safe for people of all ages and abilities to move around the community. The connectivity, convenience, and multimodal nature of these networks supports a thriving and active transportation, encouraging a shift to sustainable transportation, which enhances the well-being and climate goals. The second of these documents is the Saanich's newer Road Safety Action Plan. And this is a 10-year document to help achieve Vision Zero. And Vision Zero is the philosophy that road deaths and serious injuries can and should be eliminated while providing safe, healthy, and equitable mobility for all road users. So within this document, there have been 30 actions identified, including to build multimodal streets that include transit priority and infrastructure for walking, rolling, and cycling. The aim is to achieve the vision, where Saanich is leading the way as a community with a safe and accessible transportation system for all our residents and visitors, free of transportation-related fatalities and serious injuries. And the third is the Victoria Region Transit Future Plan. This envisions Victoria's region transit network for the next 25 years from now and describes what services, infrastructure, and investments are needed to get there. The plan was designed to create a stronger link between land use and transit planning, to support key initiatives of the BC Transit Strategic Plan, and to support the provincial transit plan. The vision of this plan is to be a leader of integrated transportation solutions, connecting people and communities to a more sustainable future. In essence, it's made up of the three overarching goals, which are transit is an attractive alternative to the private vehicle. The transit system reduces our impact on the environment, and the transit system is efficient. So then there's also the transportation priorities. So one of those is to integrate land use and transportation. And as Saanich works through to develop our center corridor and village planning, there is kind of that marriage of land use and transportation. They work together and they complement each other. It's also to create exceptional environments for walking and cycling and taking transit to the next level. The image on the screen here is the mobility priority pyramid, which has walking, cycling and micromobility, public transit, goods movement, car share, and then the personal vehicles. And this is to prioritize modes within our network, and that is starting at the top to the bottom. Also to reduce transportation-related greenhouse gas emissions by encouraging this shift to more sustainable transportation options. And lastly, it's implementing that Vision Zero. So in terms of housing policy and documents that help us inform policy and change, one is Saanich's housing strategy. This was adopted in 2021, and it provides clear direction on how Saanich plans to contribute to improving housing opportunities and outcomes and address the urgent need to increase housing supply, diversity, and affordability. This strategy includes both 7 focus areas, 22 strategies, and 73 actions. And it forms a 10-year framework and one that represents a comprehensive approach to achieving healthy housing supply within the community. And so based off of that, there was an earlier housing needs report that complemented and informed that strategy in 2020. And just recently, we have, as of 2024, an updated housing needs report. And this was a comprehensive update that provides a current assessment of existing and anticipated future housing needs within Saanich. And it identifies a number of housing units needed for 5 and 20 years following the recent 2021 census data. And it additionally presents updated population and dwelling statistics, population household projections, and actions that have been taken by the district since 2020. In terms of the housing strategy focus areas, as I mentioned, there are 7 of them. They are to increase affordable and supportive housing, to promote and protect rental housing, to support housing diversity and increase supply, to reduce barriers to housing development, strengthen partnerships, enhance community engagement, and continually understand the housing demand and address land speculation. So there have been a few key provincial housing directions. I will speak to each of them, but they are the provincial housing targets, the small-scale multi-unit housing, and transit-oriented development. So in terms of the provincial housing targets, in 2023, the province provided the district with mandated housing targets, which include tripling the volume of permits over the next 5 years. And so that was a shift historically from how housing was delivered by Saanich. And this is to provide 4,610 units. And this is the total minimum number of new completed housing units that are required. And it goes back to the slide that Mitchell was showing where, even with the number of units, 1,365 between 2018 and 2022, we were still falling short with where that number would be. And so it just breaks down the types of units. And of course, this is where our housing needs report is quite important. So it just talks about the unit delivery over the first 5 years. And then next slide, please. And then it goes a little bit more into detail on those types of units. So the studio or 1 bedrooms, the 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, below market rental or below market rate units, rental units, and then supportive housing units. And then there is also the small scale multi-unit housing. And so this is essentially a form of missing middle housing. And of course, within Saanich, we're calling that more of neighborhood homes. But in terms of the form and development, that is what it's doing. It's to end that exclusionary zoning and set a new base or as of right for single detached dwellings. So essentially, it allows 3, 4, or in certain cases where you're near frequent transit, up to 6 units on each lot. And so now also in addition to this, there's the small scale multi-unit housing and also the opportunity for both a secondary suite and a garden suite on the same property. So Saanich adhered to the to the province, and our zoning bylaw was updated in effect of the deadline as of June 2024. So what will the Tillicum Burnside account for? It would account for, as we draft it, people's well-being. It's going to take into account and include all of the information and feedback and insight that we receive from the community and stakeholder perspectives. It'll have context and policy around environmental and resiliency consideration. It'll offer a spectrum of housing types that will fulfill community needs. It'll have a range of mobility choices embedded within it, and ultimately will be host to a thriving local economy.
Thanks, Elena, for providing that overview on all of the policies that are playing a key role in informing the direction that this plan may take. The other really important aspect of what's informing where this plan may go is engagement with the community. And the in-depth ways to participate in this round of engagement in phase 2 through the course of June and July are a series of in-depth workshops, 2.5 to 3 hours each, and I'm going to share those. There's also been some walking tours that are completed and information pop-ups, and there will be a survey going live with this first workshop on June 14th. It'll be on the project webpage in Hello Saanich, and that'll be open until mid-July. So just a little bit more on what will be covered at each workshop. We have a series of sessions to get to understand community needs. We also have a series of engagement boards that are going to be out front, and they have the same questions that will be on the digital survey. So if you don't have the time or it's just more convenient to participate digitally, you're more than welcome to do so on the survey. For those who do join in person, childcare will be offered on site. All these sessions are occurring at the Tillicum Mall by the winners within the mall. There will be childcare offered as well as food and refreshments. At the transportation session, which is occurring this Saturday, June 14th from 12:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., the key things that we're going to be looking at is, what matters most to you in terms of transportation priorities and how you move within your community. We're going to look at existing and planned improvements in the area and discuss your concerns and challenges, specific locations that are perhaps not working as well as they could, or where you don't feel safe letting your kids ride their bikes, as well as existing strengths and opportunities for improvement. And we'll be looking at some of the key road designs and the priorities of how we allocate road space on roads like Tillicum Road and Burnside Road. On Sunday, June 22nd, from 12:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., we'll be looking at some of the housing options and specifically, what you feel is necessary to offer within this area by 2050, so within the next 25 years. It's scary to think that 2050 is only 25 years away. We're going to look at some of the scenarios for land use, so how to allocate new homes, and there are different ways that can be done to fulfill the same number of units or a similar number coming in, as well as the trade-offs that might come with each of those options. And then we'll be looking to better understand, what your interests and desires are for what is included within your community and what may be supported through the plan, either directly through the way land use is designated or indirectly through efforts to support commercial activity or otherwise, as well as things that can help to be supported through this work, such as libraries and parks and that nature. Finally, on Tuesday, June 24th, from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., we'll be looking at the Village's Public Realm and Open Space Workshop. And here we're going to be looking to learn more about the places that you love and want to either maintain or elevate. We're going to be doing some visioning on what kind of feel you're hoping to get in the villages and what creating community benefits might look like within there as well. All three of these sessions are taking place at Tillicum Mall, and it's located, once you come in through the main parking lot entrance, very close to the winners. And you'll see the boards out front, and each session is in the same location. Each session has childcare, and each session has refreshments and food. So just to reiterate, phase one of this plan, which occurred during the winter, helped to initiate the technical analysis and baseline mapping, helped to establish the area profile and demographics, and helped to establish some of the basics around the complete street design concepts. We're now in phase two, and that's resulted in the terms of reference for the plan that Council approved. We're now in phase two of the plan. This involves the first deep community engagement. So the information pop-ups and walking tours, the workshops that are coming up, as well as the digital survey. We're looking to identify the issues, priorities, and concepts that are important to you, and combine that with concepts and policy approaches that are identified in existing policy or being directed from provincial mandates, as well as some development analysis. Through phase three, we'll be developing the draft plan and conducting a second round of engagement to get feedback on that plan. In phase four, through the winter, it's about refining it and establishing an implementation strategy. And then in phase five, which is likely late spring, it's coming back to council and sharing what the plan is looking like and seeking to move forward from there.